Hello and welcome to the Healthtech Marketing Show. I'm here today with my great friend, Mark Erwich. And Mark will tell you a little bit about himself in a minute. For those of you who maybe are listening to this for the first time ever, Mark, the Healthtech Marketing Show is, I think, the only podcast which is exclusively dedicated to health tech marketing. And we've been doing this for a couple of years now. And I want to thank you if you're a long-time subscriber. Much appreciate that. And I also want to give a big thanks to our sponsors, HIMS, who've supported so much of what we do pretty much since the start. Now, today we're going to talk about the whole notion of marketing to your existing customers. So customer marketing. And I think, every marketer knows that it's 5 times, 10 times easier to sell to an existing customer. But the honest truth is that, most of our budget really goes on marketing to new customers. And so I'm really glad that we get the opportunity to dedicate an episode specifically to this. And Mark is somebody who has Mark will tell you a bit about himself in a second, but he's a very, very experienced healthcare technology marketer. And I'm really looking forward to discussing this with you. So Mark, tell everybody a bit about yourself and then let's get into the topic.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for the invite. And I'm thrilled to be here, Adam, and looking forward to share information. But one of the things that I'm super passionate about, which is customer marketing. I'm originally from the Netherlands, came to the US about, 20 years ago. At that time, a company called Nuance Healthcare, that's now been acquired by Microsoft, invited me for a management exchange program. The plan was that we would stay in the US for 18 months. But for the last 20 years, I've been here and no plans to leave.
Same with me. Yeah.
And I've always been in marketing. Prior to Nuance, I worked for Apple in marketing. After that was Nuance. Then I worked for Imprivata, and the latest company I worked for is Verado, and I left there about a month ago. And I'm excited to talk with you, but also I'm excited to be helping you, Adam, and helping the broader Health Launchpad team, and talk about hey, what's the view of a customer on all of this, and share that information with your team as well as your clients.
It's just great having you part of the team and having you join us. Funny is, I think anybody who went to the Sway Health Conference will know that where we actually met was we were on a panel together debating the benefits of ABM a couple of months ago in Atlanta. Really great conference, and it was really fun, a really fun debate. So let's talk about customer marketing. And so first of all, is there? I mean, it seems to me there's actually a lot more interest in it of late. Do you see that, and what do you think is going on there?
Yeah, totally. So I think in the C-suite, there's 3 major categories. But the first one, business models are all based on renewals and subscription. That migration is basically there. So as a result of that, there is much more value to ensure that your retention rates are there, right? There's no point marketing, bringing in new leads, trying to turn that in towards new customers, if at the bottom your existing customers fall out. So making sure that your existing customers are treated well, and getting towards the level of the right level of support in terms of education, in terms of onboarding, in terms of relationship, and making sure that you study that, you survey that, and you have good visibility on that. So with that comes also in the business model the opportunity to sell more. As you stated earlier, it's much easier to sell towards an existing customer, your acquisition costs are significantly lower than to try to convert a new prospect. The second part is a realization that customer feedback is critical to grow the organization. You get better products by leveraging customer feedback. And you get positive a positive perspective from your clients if they understand that you're actually using the feedback, and it creates a differentiated experience, which will help enhance your market position. And then I think the third category is in the traditional like demand gen way of working. Become and Sway was a perfect example where that was shared broadly. Our prospects are digitally deaf. If we're marketing towards the healthcare world, the traditional emails are no longer working. And what we hear is that CIOs and VPs of IT, they're leveraging their network, whether that's formal through events, or informal. They just call their buddies in another hospital in a 25, 50-mile radius and say, how are you solving that? And so with that comes also the buyers are consulting class and other analysts to get a better perspective. But basically what it means is that all of these programs rely on advocacy that comes from customers. So if you don't have that in place, you got to fail on the long term. And you may bring in some new prospects, but if the voice of the customer is not there, and if it's not shared that you're bringing value in your IT infrastructure, if you can't hear that from your peers, then very quickly you see that the sales goes dead. So I think growth and expansion within the existing base are only possible when we provide value. Customer marketing is a great way to actually capture that, to demonstrate that, and then show that in way other areas.
So there's a lot to unpack in what you've just described. I think what you've given there is a really good kind of holistic definition of customer marketing. Let's just break it down a bit. So, I mean, first of all, if you're a new CMO in an organization, and maybe it's been a very sales-led organization and it's been focused, heavily on new customer acquisition. How would you go about explaining to the CEO what a customer marketing program looks like? I think it's easy to, any CEO with half a brain is going to understand why they need to do it, but actually explaining that it's actually a different program. How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, I had really fun. I think you asked me 2 weeks ago to do this podcast, and so last weekend I googled what is customer marketing, and the first definition I came up with was customer marketing is a term referring towards any marketing activity or any marketing campaign that's aimed towards your customer, your current customers. And there's a few more definitions out there. So, but customer marketing is so much more than just cross-selling and upselling your solutions, right? It is really getting a better understanding of your customers and then ensuring that you have strategically embedded information in all kinds of other departments as well. So I would say towards the CEO, hey, see customer marketing as a strategic discipline that you need to create exceptional customer value. And you do that by getting insights in towards your customers, and that eventually will drive to efficacy, retention, and growth. And the insight part is really important. And whether that's through NPS or like just an email where you ask an opinion, you need to get a better understanding of your customers.
I mean, I 100% agree with that. Do you ever get pushback though from the CEO saying, yes, I agree with you, but that's what customer success does. We need you to focus on other stuff. Do you ever get, does the CEO ever struggle to actually understand why marketing has a role to play in this?
I think when you position customer marketing just as, hey, we do some cross-sell campaigns, then yes. Because what is traditionally there, either the sales team will do that or your customer success managers, whatever infrastructure is in place, then it feels, well, this is more than what you do. And do we actually need to have that resource? And hey, let's have marketing drive more leads. That's really what we need. And I think it's the lack of understanding of like that earlier definition that I gave is, well, it's so much more than it. Like, who is going to take the responsibility of doing those surveys, getting that insight in towards the customer? Who is doing not only, like we say, well, a customer webinar is like a perfect example. You have a new release. I've done like half-hour every morning for 2 weeks, half-hour sessions where customers could just jump up and get a better understanding of your product, can ask questions towards the product management team. Like, these type of things are so extremely valuable. Like, nobody else in the organization is even thinking about it, let alone execute it.
I see. Yeah, understood. And I mean, the value is there. I mean, I actually was thinking about this. I have, in 2 prior businesses, one was a software business, the other was being a big kind of professional services organization, a marketing agency. And in both situations, I had actually struggled with new customer acquisition for different reasons. And, I was really actually sweating, but in both cases, we were able to increase the business over the course of 5 or 6 years by a factor of 10x the business in both cases. But the largest driver of it was existing customer growth.
Right.
And in the agency space, I actually was basically focused I moved from sort of having a role where I was involved with new customer acquisition to just growing existing customer. And the CEO made such a good decision to say, you're going to focus on growing this existing account. And as I said, it really resulted in a 10x growth. The other one was actually with my software business, was we didn't have enough capital to really invest in marketing and to do demand generation at scale, or really to do anything much. The little capital that we had went into the product, which was the right priority. But what we did was, for a couple of years, we focused almost exclusively on existing customer growth, and we were able to double the business just by doing that, by convincing the customer, helping the customers basically deliver additional value from that solution across their organization. So they added more users, and they also made significantly more upgrades. And I think the trick to it was exactly what you were describing, which is we put a lot of attention into understanding the customers and to providing really great service. So it's funny, it wasn't really marketing, it was customer success. But boy, was it effective marketing.
That fits so well into our strategy that you see with many CIOs. IT departments are looking towards reduce the number of vendors that they're working with. And so if you're only in there for one department and you're moving on and trying to find the next prospect, then very quickly there's going to be a new department head. People forget about why we even purchased it. And your renewal is at risk, right? So to spread out this value that the organization can get, it provides not only a short term, hey, we can get more revenue out of it, but a much more important long term, hey, you establish now a much more significant base, and you become a part of the strategic infrastructure, IT infrastructure of that organization. And that's really what you want to accomplish, because then when they need to find budget cuts, you're not somewhere below the list, you're above the line, and hey, they see you as important.
Yeah, and they actually see you as truly a partner.
Totally.
And I think vendors, and we used to say this is, oh, we're your partner. It's actually, I think that's a bad place to start. You need to earn the right to be seen as a partner.
Yeah.
So let's just kind of get into the operations of it. So when you were running the various marketing, departments that you were running, how did you structure customer marketing? Was it its own department, or how did you have people assigned specifically to that? How did you do that?
Yeah, I'd always had a department for the three companies that I mentioned, sometimes with 7 people, sometimes with 1 person. But as you know, in marketing, everybody's always busy with many different things. And so by assigning ownership towards one individual, and particularly since it's such a cross-functional role, like this person need to be connected towards a customer experience team, service and support, but also with product management if there's a new release coming out, getting an understanding of that, very closely aligned towards the sales organization. And I would say most of the times even closer than your typical demand gen team, and getting an understanding of your customers. This is also the person that can help identify, hey, we have this great customer, they have this excellent use case and a great name, and maybe perfect scenario for a case study or for a webinar that we have coming up, rather than always using the same customers for that, which frequently happens. So I think by assigning that individual, that person becomes like, hey, this is the voice of the customer. And I had that person talk towards other members in the C-suite, whether that was the customer, the head of customer experience or the head of sales. Totally fine. This is a critical role in the organization.
And how would you measure the performance of that person? Because if they're on new customer acquisition, you can kind of use demand generation metrics, but like with existing customers, how would you? Is it tied to customer revenue growth? How would you do that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Adam. So what I look for is the influence towards churn and retention rates. How are we doing there? What is the upsell and cross-sell pipeline? And you should track those differently, right? Upsell, more consumption of the product that they already own, cross-sell, other products from their portfolio that they're getting. What is the customer participation in marketing and sales activities? Really important. Like, are we building those relationships? That webinar where you're using a customer that I was just talking about, and how big is that base? Like in any healthcare IT company will serve different categories of organizations, and you want to find, we want an Epic customer, or we want a Cerner customer, or we want someone in the West or in the East, or a larger one, or part of an idea. Like, there's all of these criteria. So you want to split it out and making sure that you have customers across the different areas. So it's customer giving reference calls and or reference visits. So that customer participation is a really good criteria for me, at least, to see how it's going. And then we're looking towards scores, NPS scores, or other survey scores that you have. And in the end, most important, your class scores, right? Because that's what other prospects will take a look at. And so how are you able to manage it? So I think those are the 4 most important areas to track.
That's really good. It's really, I like the precision of that. Now, you, in your setup, you talked about the notion of customer advocacy.
Yeah.
Give a definition of that, because that's not something that everybody understands as well. You've got a real passion for it, but just tell us what that really means.
To me, it is automated is the wrong word. Unrequested, unsolicited feedback, positive feedback from your existing customers. And you really need that because that's like we stated earlier, right? The prospect and customers are trusting referrals much more than any marketing material that we could ever create, right? And so when you get towards this relationship with your customers, and that's not just between a customer, the sales rep, and the person, the department head where he sold it to. That's not just between your CX, was it customer success manager, or however that role is called, and the person who's using the software. But it needs to be on all different levels, on the C-suite as well. Hey, does your CEO have a relationship with this CIO of your customer? Because then you can talk about true partnership. And then how would you see that?
Yep.
What are the results out of that? I think would be the next question. And that's really like, are they sharing on social? Like one of the cool things that one of my customer marketing, I think she was a director, came up with was a concept of giving a birthday cake a year after we had gone live. And so nothing special, like, and not too expensive. But we spent maybe $80 on it, right? But like the value out of that then they posted that with the team behind it on LinkedIn, and like for the whole world to see.
Brilliant.
Like, yeah, and see it. Most of the time in marketing, we think about all of these complex things that cost a lot of money, but these simple things work well, and creates, one, a lot of buzz, but two, also respect from other prospects. And because now they see, oh, they're using it as well. We were looking at it a week ago. Let's look at it again. So these are the kind of things which are really valuable. So like social sharing, customer quotes, like you see them frequently. And I think always, whether it's like use them appropriately, whether it's in a white paper, in a data sheet, on your website, because that the more customers you see there, you create that level of trust with new prospects. Customer references. So this could be like a project by itself, right? I've seen difficult situations, but for sales, it's always important, like, who can they call? And like the offer is there, you need to have the infrastructure in place to track that, and some level of reward for your, but you don't want that to happen always towards the same customers. So you need to share that well. Product reviews, I'm not sure that helps a lot, but there is, like, you see those websites. I think there's 3 or 4 websites out there.
G2, Capterra,
that's right.
Elion Health actually does one specifically in healthcare.
Yep. And so are they valuable or not? To be absent is not great, but like some value is probably there. So I think another big part is if you're looking towards big trade shows, like whether that's HIMSS or others, or Chime or Vive, you want your customers to speak there.
Have you ever created a champion customer program? So the idea, it's actually, you know, a lot of what you've described, the sort of different tactics that you described, sort of basically roll up underneath one single big program. And not many companies, frankly, do them at scale. But the whole idea is that it is all about celebrating your customers. In fact, actually, I've just come back from one. I spent the first part of the week at InterSystems Global Summit in DC, which was a fantastic event. I mean, a really, really well run, and its primary purpose is to celebrate current customers. So, you know, they had speakers from the VA and several other customers. And they've used it in a couple of ways. I mean, first and foremost, you know, it is about celebrating their customers and spending more time with existing customers. But the other thing is that they used it also to share their vision about how AI is, what their vision is for the role of AI and how they're going to bring that to market with their solution. So really clever, the way that they do that. I mean, there are other, the other example of it, the other great one is Epic's UGM, right? Which is, it's like, it's the conference everybody wants to go to, and you have to, you're lucky if you get an invite. So,
definitely we organize user conferences, and I think pre and post COVID, some of those better attended than others. I think the largest we had like 700 people or so when I was at Nuance, and what you create. Like sometimes people are talking about networking with your customers, and obviously that's important.
Yeah.
But what is equally and sometimes even more important is that you create a community with your customers, and then they start to exchange information. Like, hey, I'm doing this, or I run in this problem. They find like similar type of hospitals with similar type of problems, and like look towards. We're always thinking about, okay, well, what's the cost of this? Now that this is going to be massively expensive. Well, but what's the benefit of it? See it as an investment. Now you create all of these relationships.
Yep.
These people are better using your software. They're no longer calling your support or your customer experience team because they're stuck somewhere. They're not talking towards competitors because they get frustrated. They've solved it out themselves, and like it's perfect, right? So like creating that mindset that there needs to be a network with you, absolutely. But also see if you're talking about true partnership instead of a true vendorship, the partnership is well, we create an environment where our customers can communicate with each other, and they build their own relationships, and they will call themselves if they're stuck somewhere.
It takes real courage to do that, right? I mean, it's like because it's an easy decision to do it if your customer satisfaction scores are high and you've got high advocacy. If you've got a lot of problems, then what you might be doing is creating making it easy for them to compare notes about how much they hate you. So it's something to be careful about, I think.
But in the end, that information comes out anyway, right? And so
at least you control it, right?
And so you control it, and you create an environment where you stand in front of an audience and say, "Hey, this is what we're going to do about it," rather than they're individually talking towards competitors and over time walk away from you. Now you're able to control that process.
It's a brave thing to do, but it is the right thing, because what you're doing is saying, "Look, we're going to own this problem. And you as our customers are the most important stakeholder in helping us how we solve it. And we're going to report back on how we're doing with it. But you've got to deliver on it. Otherwise, but if you don't deliver on it, you're screwed whether you've done the program or not. So you might as well do the program to keep them with you, because they'll give you a second chance.
Yeah, and we didn't talk much about it, but in that context, I want to mention customer insight.
Yes, go on about
because I shared NPS and class. They're absolutely important, and you should have a process in place, and you should also have ownership in place. Who's going to drive that within your organization, and particularly for those organizations that don't necessarily have a customer marketing individual. But then there's the generic thing of customer insight. How are your customers using your product? What is the value that they get out of it? And where do they see that value? How is their organization changing? And how can we continue to provide value and even more value over time? And so I think to get that from your customers is critical. And there's different methodologies for that, whether that is virtual or in person. You may have a CAP, or you may have a product council, or you may have something else. You may simply do surveys, or look towards this pretty cool software. I forgot the name of the product, where you can actually have pop-ups in the software now saying, "Hey, we're considering making this change. What do you think about
Oh,
that?"
interesting. Yeah. So
So,
I so agree with you on that. I've got some misgivings about NPS. I feel that NPS was designed for more of a B2C, and my personal belief is that you need to do a lot of what you just described, which is you've got to really dive deep to get those insights. One of the things that we do for clients is on their behalf is a thing we call the future needs assessment, which is, if they will hire us to go talk to their clients to do an objective customer interview to understand what their future needs are. So we're doing this, that they're hiring. It makes a great statement, right? Because it makes a statement saying, we are really committed to you as a customer, and we've actually hired this third party to come in and interview you because we want to understand what you see as, what this company needs to do to make sure that they're serving you effectively, and to get your feedback as they shape their long-term strategy.
Yeah.
And I've seen it being used, in both a way to grow an existing account, which is going well, but also as a way to save something which is in trouble, because it buys you time. So I'm a big believer in that. But NPS, I just feel that what you get with NPS, is you don't have much control over who responds. So the C-suite's not. Yeah, so
I love that you say that so much, because typically we're talking about the buyers group, right? But there's the buyers group, but there's also the users group, and they're not necessarily the same.
No.
And in order to, we talked about value earlier, and here's where those 2 points intersect, because you need to have them, like the department head, see the value of your solution. You can score great with your current users, but if the department head doesn't see the total value that you're bringing, your long-term value for the customer and your long-term deal is still at risk, right?
Yes.
So and NPS can demonstrate that. Like, what is my score here? What is my score there? And I'm not sure that NPS is always the best thing. There's emails where you just say give a red or green light, similar as exit the restroom is a smiley face or a sad face. Like, track that and get a better understanding. Like, is everybody happy with it, or is just the people that you're talking to happy, and the people that you're not talking to are not happy at all? They're considering a bigger platform. And
I read a statistic somewhere that it says the vast majority of customers who defected said that they were satisfied or extremely satisfied the year before. What they didn't say was that they were committed.
Yeah.
And then so you can't get, I just don't think you can get that from an online survey.
Yeah. And like this department head may be very happy, but he doesn't know what his boss is thinking, right? Or not always, at least.
Exactly.
And so that's why this is important. So,
well, you could use the NPS to get user feedback. The user says, we like it, the product's fine.
Right.
But the buying group is not happy because, the customer service hasn't been great, or, they're just not seeing the ROI. So it is use it carefully.
So then you have on one hand side, you have your NPS class, and what other type of the checking the pulse surveys you can have. And then on the other hand side, you have your CAP, Customer Advisory Board, Product Council. And a Product Council can be completely virtual, right? Where you meet with a group of customers, you're showing, hey, here's a new feature and a new perspective. Would that be valuable? And eventually, would you be interested in becoming a beta customer? It's definitely the area there.
Mark, this has been a great discussion. I've really enjoyed it. As we wrap things up, just a last question to you. Any advice for someone who's trying to get it started, but really doesn't have a lot of resources? There might be a marketing team of 1 or 2 people.
Oh, yeah, totally. So I think I went over a long list, like 20 different items. Don't try to do them
a bit
all.
intimidating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't try to do them all. Pick one and do that really good. And make sure, I think more important than with any other marketing activity, make sure that you have alignment across the organization, right? This is not just, hey, yeah, I spoke towards the head of sales, and he's okay. No, you're head of customer experience, or head of professional services, or head of support, whatever the infrastructure is in your organization, need to be okay. But product management typically gets involved in these discussions as well. There are some like brilliant examples. We bring out a new version of software, send out an email from the product manager who's sharing that information with a little video snippet in there showing, hey, this is how you use it. It makes it much more personal and easier to adopt. I think the simple things, like think about how do you get the value from your customers articulated and expanded within the rest of the organizations, whether that is for a webinar or for others. Think about the next time when you go towards a trade show, how do I involve my existing customers, and how do I treat them differently, potentially, than new prospects? And is there a way to get those two connected so that they can see the value? So I think that's where I would start simple before expanding and create this long list that we talked about.
That's great. Thank you, Mark. That was terrific. And actually, I see a comment because we're doing this live. I do see a comment from LinkedIn, which I think agreeing that if you can do the in-person survey session, try and do it around a milestone. And use it as a way to build relationships, which I completely agree. I think that's a great point. Thank you, Gary Rust out there. Really appreciate your comment. Okay, well, we're going to wrap this one up. Mark, so grateful to you for sharing your thoughts and your perspectives, and so looking forward to working with you. So if you're watching this live and you want to subscribe, you can find the Healthtech Marketing Show on Apple, Spotify, any of the shows, any of the podcast players. They're all there. And go to healthlaunchpad.com because you'll see the show notes. And if you go under Healthtech Marketing Show, you'll also see a blog that we create based on what Mark has talked about, really written to be very actionable, so that you can take the thinking that Mark shared and actually put that into work. Last thing, which is if you're listening to this and you like what you hear, tell 2 people about it. Just share it on LinkedIn. Send a link to the podcast to colleagues. We really appreciate anything that the community can do to spread the word. So with that, I want to thank you out there for listening, for watching. I want to thank Mark again for your time today, and also a big thank you to our sponsors, HIMS. And we'll see you next time.